Greetings and welcome back. Today's video, a duct tape pattern for making leather vests, both for my Mandalorian costumes and the Viking Pulse Raid costumes that we're doing for Dragon Con this year. So as I mentioned, for the Viking costumes, my wife and I both want to go with leather vests, hoping to keep them fairly lightweight, fairly compact, something that we can throw over top of our shirts, get in and out of easily. The pattern that I needed for that, I wanted to be something reasonably tight-fitting, and I didn't really feel like messing around looking for patterns all over the place, so I just decided that since we'd seen duct tape used for patterning everything from boots to other armor, I just figured the easiest thing to do was to wrap myself up in duct tape and cut it all apart and hopefully make a pattern that would function. I'm going to use the pattern for two different types of vests, and actually multiple vests inside one of those. Like I said before, one of them will be the Viking vest. The second one will be the vest for our Mandalorian costumes. The duck cloth that my wife used to make these 4 years ago is starting to come apart a little bit. To be honest with you, we really didn't expect to spend as much time in this kit as we have. We have multiple 8, 10, 12-hour days in these kits. I mean, these kits literally have hundreds of hours on them already. Really didn't expect to get much. The duck cloth wore pretty well, but it's starting to come apart. Plus, we're talking about going for brigades, protectors, and that's going to involve some color changes here and there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a leather vest out of a tan material that matches the current base tan material, and then I'm going to make a green that should get me a protector acceptable. Again, I'm not even sure we're going to go through with that, but just in case, I intend to be able to use this same pattern for multiple things. So anyways, quick, short, easy video. Enjoy and have a great day. Many people that do these duct tape patterns use saran wrap. I don't have enough saran wrap to wrap around myself, and I also find saran wrap to be kind of hot and sweaty and messy, so I actually choose to use scrap t-shirts, or if I'm patterning boots or something like that, I'll use socks and things like that. Anyhow, just start laying down layers of duct tape. I usually try and put 2 layers of duct tape everywhere so that I've got a reasonably sturdy, substantial pattern. Once I had a couple of good layers of duct tape wrapped all around me, we started by laying out center lines in the front section and under the arms, and then again in the back. Mostly reference marks. When we're actually making the paper patterns, we'll go through and make sure that everything is reasonably the same size and lined up. Once we had references, we started laying out the side panels. These are the pieces that are actually going to have the curves. My intent when I cut this out of leather is to not have to try and form or mold the leather. So I'm hoping that by putting the curves in the side panels, I'll be able to make any sort of adjustments for wearer's body or shape or chest or anything like that in the side panels, and I'll be able to keep the front panels and back panels flat. Once we had one side done, we used a tape measure to help make sure that the other side was approximately the same size. You want to make sure that everything is reasonably proportional. And then we cut it off carefully. I then labeled everything, traced out approximately what I wanted the collars to look like, and then started making reference marks on all of the lines, so when I cut this thing apart, I'll be able to get all of the pieces back together again. I squished the shoulder pieces flat on the table and then made as straight as possible line from collar to the top of the shoulder seam. Flipped it over and then did the same thing on the other one. Put a couple pieces of temporary tape along the back, squished the side down flat, and connected my lines as straight as possible to give me a nice straight line down the sides underneath the arms. Double checked to make sure I had my reference lines, and then started cutting everything apart. And while I was doing this, I go through and double check all of my measurements to make sure that I had everything approximately proportional. When I had the side panel completely cut out, I gave a little extra room underneath the arms. I don't want these things rubbing or binding right there. It would be incredibly uncomfortable, so gave myself an extra little bit of room and then cut that down. Double check the measurements on the shoulders to make sure that they were both the same length. Cut the extra material off of the sleeves and then cut the shoulders at the seam on the top of both shoulders. I flipped the side that I had already cut out over on top of the other side that I hadn't cut out yet, made sure that everything was square, cut the arms out, and then went through, cut the sleeves and the shoulder seam out of the other side. I then laid the material on top of the duct tape material on top of a piece of paper, once again using centerline for references, and laid it out, traced it onto a paper, and this is where I gave it the final check to make sure that everything was what it was supposed to be. Square, level, flat, whatever. Once I had one side laid out, I folded the piece of paper down the center line and traced it out from the other side. And then I repeated the process for the other pieces. Once I drew the pattern out, I had to move to a bigger piece of paper to allow me to enlarge the pattern just slightly. I added an inch to every line on all of the pieces. By reference, that was approximately 1/4 of an inch for extra sizing, because I don't want the vest to fit as tight as the duct tape did, and 3/4 of an inch or so of seam allowance for stitching and stuff like that. I left the double lines in there so that I can use the pattern as flexibly as I need. For instance, if I'm making the Viking vest, it's going to be leather and the edges are going to be directly butted together and stitched with lacing. So I won't need to worry about seam allowances on that one, and I will want it reasonably tight. So at that point in time, I will just cut on the inside lines. Whereas if I'm sewing a fabric vest or a lightweight leather material that will need seams and fold it over, I can adjust accordingly to the material. The one flaw in the design that we found so far is the curve here, how it curves back around underneath the arm, is actually kind of hard to pin up and sew. So when I rework this the next time, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to continue this line right up here and join it up underneath right in front of the arm, so it joins somewhere up in here instead of right there. And I just haven't made that modification yet, but I don't know for sure that I'm going to need that. But like I said, in the current form, it's a little difficult to pin. We'll see how that works out with leather. This is just basically scrap heavyweight canvas that I had left over. And for the most part, I'm pretty happy with how it fits. It's reasonably form-fitting, so it has a little bit extra give to put shirts and stuff like that underneath. The sides on the Mandalorians will get grommets and laced, much like the current duck cloth kit that we have. And on the Viking tunics, they're going to get laced up with leather lace. So any extra space that I have will be easy to take up, but so far produced better results with this than I have with any of the patterns that we were able to find at any of the local sewing stores, particularly considering we don't have a whole lot of local sewing stores around here. So anyhow, very happy with it so far and looking forward to actually getting started on the real tunics.